dude from Detroit.
Hello friends, welcome back. If you are looking for a complete and in-depth review of this The Karate Kid 2010, you've come to the right place. In today's video, we'll break down the full story, explore the talented cast, analyze the box office performance, and highlight the most powerful moments that make this film stand out. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let's get started. The story begins with a major life change that immediately creates emotional uncertainty and isolation for the young protagonist. Dre Parker, portrayed by Jaden Smith, is a 12-year-old boy living in Detroit with his mother. Dre is energetic, confident, and playful, living a relatively normal life surrounded by familiar people and places. However, that sense of comfort disappears completely when his mother receives a career opportunity that forces them to relocate to Beijing, changing Dre's world overnight. From the moment they arrive in China, the atmosphere around Dre feels unfamiliar and emotionally overwhelming. Everything around him is different: the language, the culture, the environment, and even the social behavior of the people surrounding him. The crowded streets, towering buildings, and constant movement create a world that feels exciting yet deeply isolating at the same time. Dre struggles immediately with the emotional reality of being far away from everything he once considered home. The emotional core of the story begins forming through Dre's loneliness and difficulty adapting to his new life. Unlike the confident personality he showed back in Detroit, he now feels uncertain and disconnected inside an environment where he barely understands the language or customs. Small, everyday situations become frustrating challenges, making him feel like an outsider everywhere he goes. At the same time, Dre's relationship with his mother remains emotionally important throughout these early stages of the story. His mother genuinely wants to give him a better future and encourages him to embrace the opportunities around him. But Dre struggles to see the positive side of the move. The emotional distance between excitement and frustration creates tension inside their relationship, because Dre's loneliness prevents him from appreciating the sacrifices his mother is making for him. Meanwhile, Dre slowly begins exploring his new surroundings and trying to adjust to life in Beijing. During one of these moments, he meets a young violin player named Mei Ying, portrayed by Han Wenwen. Their interaction brings a brief sense of comfort and happiness into Dre's difficult transition. Mei Ying's kindness and calm personality help Dre feel less isolated, creating one of the first emotional connections he experiences after arriving in China. However, this peaceful moment quickly leads to conflict. Dre soon encounters Cheng, a highly skilled kung fu student whose aggressive personality immediately creates tension. Cheng and his friends begin targeting Dre with intimidation and bullying, turning simple misunderstandings into painful and humiliating confrontations. Dre quickly realizes he is physically outmatched and emotionally unprepared for the hostility directed toward him. The bullying becomes one of the central emotional struggles of the story. Dre is not simply facing physical danger, he is dealing with fear, embarrassment, loneliness, and the emotional pain of feeling powerless inside a completely unfamiliar world. Each confrontation with Cheng weakens Dre's confidence further, making his adjustment to life in Beijing even more difficult. The atmosphere during these early scenes balances emotional realism with growing tension. Busy school environments, crowded city streets, apartment complexes, and public spaces create a vivid world where Dre constantly feels watched, judged, or vulnerable. The sense of cultural displacement remains strong throughout the story, emphasizing how isolated Dre feels despite being surrounded by people everywhere he goes. At the same time, the emotional themes beneath the conflict slowly begin taking shape. The story is not only about fighting or martial arts, it is about identity, discipline, resilience, and learning how to overcome fear without losing compassion or self control. Dre's struggles represent the painful experience of adapting to change while trying to protect his self respect in a world that feels hostile and unfamiliar. Everything changes dramatically when Dre's conflict with Cheng escalates into a dangerous confrontation he cannot handle alone. Just when the situation appears hopeless, an unexpected figure steps forward to protect him. Mr. Han, portrayed by Jackie Chan, a quiet maintenance worker whose calm personality hides a mysterious past and extraordinary martial arts skill. And as Dre watches Mr. Han effortlessly defeat multiple attackers without anger or unnecessary violence, one realization begins changing his understanding of strength forever. True power may have nothing to do with aggression at all. After witnessing Mr. Han defend him with unbelievable martial arts skill, Dre Parker's understanding of strength begins changing in ways he never expected. What initially seemed like an ordinary maintenance worker is suddenly revealed to be someone possessing incredible discipline, control, and experience. The encounter leaves Dre shocked and fascinated because Mr. Han defeats multiple attackers without unnecessary cruelty or emotional rage. His movements feel calm, precise, and completely controlled, showing a form of strength very different from the aggression Dre experienced from Cheng and the other students. Despite being impressed, Dre's problems are far from over. The bullying from Cheng continues, creating fear and emotional pressure in Dre's daily life. Every visit to school becomes stressful because he constantly worries about humiliation, violence, or confrontation. The emotional weight of isolation remains heavy on him, especially because he still struggles to fully adapt to life in Beijing. The language barrier, unfamiliar customs, and feeling of being different from everyone around him continue making Dre feel disconnected and vulnerable. At the same time, Dre's friendship with Mei Ying slowly grows stronger. Their conversations and shared moments provide emotional relief from the tension dominating the rest of his life. Mei Ying's kindness and support help Dre feel less alone in a place where he constantly feels like an outsider. Their connection adds warmth and emotional balance to the story, showing Dre that not everyone around him views him with hostility or judgment. Meanwhile, the conflict with Cheng escalates further when Dre and Mr. Han confront the Kung Fu school responsible for the bullying. The school is led by Master Li, portrayed by Yu Rungwang, a harsh and aggressive martial arts instructor who believes students should show no mercy during combat. His philosophy teaches violence, intimidation, and domination rather than discipline or self control. This toxic environment has heavily influenced Cheng and the other students, turning them into aggressive fighters who use martial arts to create fear rather than understanding. The confrontation between Mr. Han and Master Li becomes one of the most important turning points in the story. Mr. Han remains calm and respectful even while facing hostility, demonstrating emotional control that sharply contrasts with Master Lee's aggressive mindset. To prevent further violence, an agreement is reached. Dre will train in Kung Fu and compete against Cheng in an upcoming tournament, where the conflict will finally be settled officially. This decision changes everything for Dre. Until now, he viewed martial arts mainly as a way to defend himself from bullying. But under Mr. Han's guidance, he slowly begins realizing that Kung Fu is about far more than fighting. It represents discipline, balance, patience, focus, and emotional control. These lessons become central to Dre's personal growth throughout the story. Training begins in ways Dre never expects. Rather than teaching flashy attacks immediately, Mr. Han focuses on repetitive daily movements that initially seem meaningless and frustrating. Dre is instructed to repeatedly hang up a jacket, take it down, place it on the floor, and pick it back up using precise movements over and over again. At first, Dre becomes irritated and confused, believing he is being treated unfairly or used for chores instead of learning real kung fu. The emotional frustration during these scenes becomes important because Dre still struggles with patience and discipline. He wants immediate results and direct solutions to his problems, but Mr. Han's training forces him to slow down and develop control over both his body and emotions. These repetitive exercises gradually become symbolic of something deeper, learning discipline before power. The atmosphere of the story also begins shifting during this stage. While tension and fear still exist because of Cheng and the tournament ahead, moments of peace and emotional growth slowly emerge through Dre's training. Beautiful landscapes, temples, mountains, and quiet moments throughout Beijing create a sense of calmness that contrasts with the aggression surrounding the bullying conflict. At the same time, Mr. Han's mysterious personality begins revealing signs of emotional pain hidden beneath his calm exterior. Although he rarely speaks about his past, there are moments suggesting he carries deep grief and loneliness of his own. This emotional depth slowly strengthens the bond forming between him and Dre, turning their relationship into something much more meaningful than simple teacher and student. As Dre continues training under Mr. Han's unconventional methods, he slowly begins changing, not only physically but emotionally as well. And while he still fears the dangerous tournament waiting ahead, one important realization begins shaping his path forward. Kung Fu may not simply teach him how to fight, it may teach him how to face life itself. As Dre Parker continues training under Mr. Han, his life slowly begins changing in ways far deeper than he originally expected. What first appeared to be strange and repetitive exercises gradually reveal themselves as important lessons about discipline, patience, and emotional control. Although Dre still struggles with frustration and self doubt, the training starts shaping both his body and his mindset, helping him understand that Kung Fu is not simply about fighting stronger opponents, it is about learning balance within himself. At first, Dre finds Mr. Han's teaching methods extremely confusing. Repeating the same jacket movements over and over again feels pointless and exhausting to him. Every day follows the same routine: hang up the jacket, take it down, place it on the floor, pick it back up, and repeat the motions carefully. Dre expected punches, kicks, and combat training, not endless repetition of ordinary actions. His impatience grows stronger because he feels the upcoming tournament is getting closer, while he still does not know how to defend himself properly. The emotional frustration inside Dre becomes increasingly visible during this stage of the story. He still carries fear from the bullying he experienced at school, and part of him believes he is running out of time to prepare for Cheng and the aggressive Kung Fu students waiting to humiliate him again. That fear combines with loneliness and homesickness, creating emotional pressure that sometimes causes him to question whether he truly belongs in Beijing at all. At the same time, Mr. Han remains calm and emotionally controlled throughout Dre's frustration. He rarely raises his voice or reacts aggressively, even when Dre becomes angry or impatient. Instead, Mr. Han continues teaching with quiet discipline, believing that true strength comes from control rather than emotion. This calmness creates a strong contrast between the peaceful philosophy of Kung Fu and the violent mindset taught by Master Lee's students. Eventually, Dre's frustration finally explodes. After another exhausting day of repetitive training, Dre angrily confronts Mr. Han, believing he has wasted his time instead of preparing him for real combat. In one of the most important moments in the story, Mr. Han suddenly demonstrates that every jacket movement Dre practiced was secretly building defensive martial arts techniques all along. Each motion naturally transforms into blocks, counters, and reactions capable of defending against attacks. This realization completely changes Dre's perspective. For the first time, he understands that Kung Fu is not about memorizing violence, it is about developing instinct, discipline, focus, and body control through repetition and patience. The emotional impact of this moment is powerful because Dre realizes Mr. Han was teaching him far more than physical defense. He was teaching him how to think, react, and remain balanced under pressure. From this point forward, the bond between Dre and Mr. Han grows significantly stronger. Their relationship slowly evolves beyond teacher and student into something closer to family. Both characters carry emotional pain hidden beneath the surface, and through training, they begin helping each other heal emotionally in ways neither expected. Meanwhile, Dre's confidence slowly begins improving as his training becomes more advanced. He starts learning real kung fu techniques, balance exercises, breathing control, and defensive strategies that emphasize awareness and discipline rather than aggression. The physical training becomes demanding, but it also gives Dre a growing sense of purpose and self respect that was missing when he first arrived in Beijing. The atmosphere during these scenes becomes calmer and more uplifting compared to the earlier tension-filled sections of the story. Beautiful landscapes, traditional Chinese temples, mountain training sequences, and quiet moments of reflection create a peaceful emotional tone that highlights Dre's gradual transformation. The visual beauty of China also becomes more meaningful to Dre as he slowly begins appreciating the culture he once resisted. At the same time, his friendship with Mei Ying continues developing naturally. Their interactions provide emotional warmth and moments of happiness amid the stress of training and fear of the upcoming tournament. Through Mei Ying, Dre begins feeling less isolated and more connected to the world around him. However, despite his progress, the threat of Cheng and the tournament continues hanging over everything. Cheng remains aggressive and intimidating, still shaped by Master Li's cruel philosophy that teaches students to attack without mercy. Dre knows that eventually he will have to stand in front of Cheng again, not as a frightened victim but as someone prepared to face fear directly. Meanwhile, subtle hints about Mr. Han's painful past continue emerging. Although he remains emotionally reserved, moments of sadness and loneliness reveal that he carries deep emotional scars hidden beneath his calm personality. These hints create emotional mystery surrounding him, suggesting his connection to Dre may also be helping him confront grief he has avoided for years. As Dre continues learning discipline, patience, and emotional control through Kung Fu, one important truth slowly becomes clear. The greatest battle he faces may not be against Cheng at all. It may be against the fear and doubt inside himself. As Dre Parker continues his Kung Fu training under Mr. Han, the changes within him slowly become more visible, both emotionally and physically. The frightened and impulsive boy who first arrived in Beijing is gradually beginning to develop patience, focus, and inner discipline. Although the fear of the upcoming tournament still remains heavy in his mind, Dre starts realizing that Kung Fu is shaping much more than his fighting ability. It is changing the way he sees himself and the world around him. The bond between Dre and Mr. Han grows significantly deeper during this stage of the story. Their relationship now feels far more personal than a simple student and teacher connection. Mr. Han's quiet guidance gives Dre emotional stability at a time when he still struggles with loneliness and uncertainty in a foreign country. In return, Dre's youthful energy slowly begins bringing life and emotional warmth back into Mr. Han's isolated existence. At the same time, Dre's confidence begins improving through discipline rather than aggression. Earlier in the story, he wanted immediate strength so he could fight back against Cheng and end the bullying quickly. Now, however, he slowly learns that true martial arts are not about anger or revenge. Under Mr. Han's philosophy, Kung Fu becomes a way of developing emotional control, awareness, balance, and self respect. The training itself also becomes more advanced and physically demanding. Mr. Han introduces Dre to difficult exercises involving balance, coordination, breathing, and controlled movement. Rather than focusing only on attack techniques, the lessons emphasize harmony between body and mind. Dre learns that every movement has purpose and that calmness can often be more powerful than aggression. The atmosphere during these sequences becomes visually beautiful and emotionally peaceful. Mr. Han takes Dre to breathtaking locations across China, including temples, mountain paths, and ancient training grounds that reflect the deeper spiritual side of martial arts. These scenes create a powerful contrast with the fear and violence Dre experienced earlier in the story. The environment itself begins feeling like part of the training, teaching patience, focus, and respect through silence and discipline. One of the most important moments during this stage occurs when Dre and Mr. Han travel to a mountain area where Kung Fu students train among nature. Dre witnesses martial arts practiced not as violence but as balance and harmony connected to the world around them. He begins understanding that Kung Fu is deeply connected to philosophy and emotional discipline rather than simple physical combat. At the same time, Dre's relationship with Mei Ying continues growing naturally. Their friendship brings emotional warmth and comfort into Dre's difficult journey. Around her, he feels more relaxed and accepted, allowing him to temporarily forget the pressure surrounding the tournament and the bullying conflict. Mei Ying's kindness also helps Dre feel increasingly connected to life in Beijing, transforming the city from an unfamiliar place into something beginning to feel meaningful. However, tension continues building beneath these calmer moments. Cheng and the other Kung Fu students remain a constant threat, and the upcoming tournament feels unavoidable. Although Dre has improved significantly through training, part of him still fears facing Cheng again because of the emotional trauma caused by the bullying. Cheng's aggressive personality and Master Li's ruthless teachings continue representing everything Mr. Han is trying to protect Dre from becoming. Meanwhile, deeper emotional layers surrounding Mr. Han finally begin surfacing more clearly. Dre slowly notices signs of sadness hidden beneath Mr. Han's calm personality. Moments of silence, emotional distance, and quiet grief suggest he carries painful memories connected to loss and loneliness. Although Mr. Han rarely speaks openly about his past, it becomes increasingly clear that martial arts are not only a discipline for him, they are also a way of surviving emotional pain. The emotional depth of the story becomes stronger because both Dre and Mr. Han are healing from different forms of loss. Dre struggles with displacement, fear, and loneliness after leaving his old life behind, while Mr. Han appears haunted by grief connected to events he cannot forget. Through training and friendship, they slowly help each other rediscover emotional strength and purpose. As Dre Parker's training with Mr. Han continues, his transformation becomes more noticeable with each passing day. The fear, frustration, and insecurity that once controlled him slowly begin giving way to discipline, confidence, and emotional maturity. Although the upcoming Kung Fu tournament still creates pressure and anxiety, Dre no longer feels completely powerless against the challenges surrounding him. For the first time since arriving in Beijing, he begins believing he might truly be capable of standing on his own. The emotional connection between Dre and Mr. Han also grows much deeper during this stage of the story. Their relationship is no longer simply built around martial arts training. It has evolved into a powerful bond based on trust, guidance, and emotional healing. Mr. Han becomes a father like figure in Dre's life, providing the patience, discipline, and understanding Dre desperately needs while struggling to adapt to a foreign world. At the same time, Dre's presence slowly brings warmth and meaning back into Mr. Han's isolated life. Mr. Han's teaching philosophy continues shaping Dre in important ways. Rather than encouraging aggression or revenge against Cheng, he constantly emphasizes balance, respect, focus, and self control. Dre slowly realizes that Kung Fu is not about becoming violent or dominating others. It is about mastering fear, controlling emotion, and remaining calm even in difficult situations. These lessons become emotionally significant because they directly challenge the cruelty and aggression taught by Master Lee. Meanwhile, Dre's physical skills continue improving rapidly. His movements become smoother, faster, and more controlled as his training intensifies. Mr. Han introduces more advanced techniques involving balance, reaction timing, defensive movement, and concentration. Dre learns how to use discipline and awareness instead of relying purely on strength or emotion during combat. The atmosphere during these training sequences remains visually beautiful and emotionally calming. Mountain landscapes, traditional Chinese architecture, peaceful training grounds, and moments of quiet reflection create a strong contrast with the violence and intimidation associated with Cheng's world. Through these experiences, Dre begins developing respect and appreciation for Chinese culture and the deeper philosophy behind Kung Fu. One particularly important moment occurs when Mr. Han takes Dre to observe a cobra carefully moving through its environment. He explains how martial arts are connected to balance, patience, and harmony rather than uncontrolled aggression. These lessons help Dre understand that true strength comes from awareness and control rather than anger. The symbolism of nature becomes emotionally meaningful because it reflects the calmness and discipline Dre is slowly learning within himself. At the same time, Dre's friendship with Mei continues becoming more emotionally important. Their bond gives Dre moments of happiness and normalcy amid the pressure surrounding the tournament and his difficult adjustment to life in Beijing. Around Maying, Dre feels accepted and understood rather than isolated or judged. Their connection also motivates him to continue growing emotionally instead of giving in to fear or anger. However, despite Dre's progress, the threat posed by Cheng and Master Lee remains very real. Cheng continues training under a philosophy built on intimidation and merciless aggression. Master Lee teaches his students that showing compassion is weakness, creating an environment where fear and violence are rewarded instead of discipline and respect. This dangerous mindset continues shaping Cheng into someone driven by dominance rather than self control. Meanwhile, deeper emotional truths about Mr. Han's past finally begin emerging more clearly. Dre starts noticing moments where Mr. Han's calm exterior breaks slightly, revealing intense sadness hidden beneath years of emotional restraint. Eventually, it becomes clear that Mr. Han carries painful memories connected to personal tragedy and loss. These emotional wounds explain much of his quiet personality and isolated lifestyle. The revelation of Mr. Han's grief becomes one of the most emotional moments in the story because it shows that even someone as disciplined and wise as him still struggles with pain and loneliness. Rather than being emotionally invincible, Mr. Han is revealed as someone who survived devastating loss and continues carrying that grief every day. This honesty strengthens the emotional bond between him and Dre even further, allowing both characters to understand each other more deeply. At the same time, Dre realizes that Kung Fu training is helping him in ways far beyond physical defense. It is teaching him patience, emotional control, confidence, and resilience, qualities he lacked when he first arrived in China. He begins understanding that the real purpose of martial arts is not to hurt others but to develop inner balance and strength. As the tournament draws closer and the pressure surrounding Dre continues increasing, one powerful realization slowly takes shape inside him. The greatest warriors are not the ones without pain or fear, but the ones who learn how to rise above them. As the Kung Fu tournament approaches closer, Dre Parker's emotional and physical transformation continues becoming more noticeable. The boy who once arrived in Beijing feeling isolated, frightened, and powerless is slowly evolving into someone more disciplined, focused, and emotionally balanced. Although fear still exists inside him, it no longer controls every decision he makes. Through Mr. Han's guidance, Dre begins understanding that courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means learning how to face fear without letting it destroy confidence or self respect. The bond between Dre and Mr. Han becomes even stronger during this stage of the story. Their relationship now feels deeply personal and emotionally meaningful, shaped not only through training but through shared loneliness and healing. Mr. Han is no longer simply teaching Kung Fu techniques, he is teaching Dre how to deal with frustration, humiliation, anger, and uncertainty in a healthier way. At the same time, Dre's presence gives Mr. Han a renewed sense of connection and purpose that had been missing from his life for years. One of the most emotional developments during this part of the story comes when Mr. Han finally reveals the painful truth about his past. Beneath his calm personality and disciplined exterior, he has been carrying deep emotional grief connected to a tragic family loss. The memories continue haunting him, explaining his loneliness and the sadness Dre occasionally noticed during quiet moments. This revelation changes Dre's understanding of Mr. Han completely. For the first time, Dre realizes that Mr. Han's wisdom and emotional control were not created through an easy life. They were built through suffering, loss, and survival. The emotional honesty shared between them strengthens their bond even further because both characters now understand each other's pain on a deeper level. Dre sees that strength is not about pretending pain does not exist. True strength comes from continuing to live and care despite carrying emotional wounds. At the same time, Dre's training reaches a more advanced level. Mr. Han continues teaching him that Kung Fu is based on balance, patience, timing, and awareness rather than uncontrolled aggression. Dre's movements become faster and more precise, but more importantly, his mindset becomes calmer and more disciplined. Instead of reacting emotionally to fear or intimidation, he slowly learns how to remain focused under pressure. The atmosphere during these sequences remains visually beautiful and emotionally reflective. Peaceful training grounds, ancient temples, mountain landscapes, and quiet moments throughout Beijing create a sense of emotional calmness that contrasts sharply with the violence associated with Cheng and Master Li's world. These settings reinforce the spiritual and philosophical side of Kung Fu, showing that martial arts are deeply connected to inner peace and emotional balance. Meanwhile, Dre's friendship with Mei Ying continues bringing emotional warmth into his difficult journey. Around her, he feels accepted and appreciated rather than judged or isolated. Their bond helps Dre feel increasingly connected to life in China, transforming Beijing from a place of loneliness into a world slowly becoming meaningful to him. These softer emotional moments also balance the growing tension surrounding the upcoming tournament. However, the threat posed by Cheng and Master Li continues intensifying. Chen remains aggressive and determined to defeat Dre, while Master Li continues encouraging cruelty and merciless behavior among his students. Unlike Mr. Han's teachings, which emphasize discipline and self control, Master Li teaches that victory matters more than compassion or honor. This philosophical difference becomes one of the central emotional conflicts in the story, representing two completely different understandings of strength. Dre begins realizing that the tournament is not simply about winning a fight, it is about proving which philosophy is stronger. As the tournament grows closer, Dre still experiences moments of fear and self doubt. Memories of being bullied and humiliated continue affecting him emotionally, reminding him of how powerless he once felt. Yet now, instead of running from that fear, he slowly begins facing it directly through discipline and preparation. Meanwhile, Mr. Han continues guiding him with patience and emotional understanding, helping Dre recognize that martial arts are not about becoming violent or intimidating others. They are about learning self respect, emotional control, and resilience during difficult moments in life. And as Dre prepares himself mentally and physically for the biggest challenge he has ever faced, one important truth becomes clearer than ever. Real courage is not fighting because of anger. It is standing back up after fear tries to break you. As the Kung Fu tournament moves closer, tension begins building around Dre Parker from every direction. Although his skills and confidence have improved greatly under Mr. Han's guidance, the emotional pressure surrounding the competition continues growing stronger. Dre understands that the tournament is not simply a sporting event anymore. It represents his chance to finally confront the fear, humiliation, and helplessness that once controlled his life after arriving in Beijing. The emotional growth inside Dre becomes more visible during this stage of the story. Earlier, he reacted to problems through frustration, anger, or impulsive behavior. Now, however, he begins showing patience and emotional control even during stressful situations. Mr. Han's lessons are slowly shaping the way he thinks, helping him understand that true strength comes from discipline rather than aggression. At the same time, the emotional bond between Dre and Mr. Han deepens even further after the painful truth about Mr. Han's past is revealed. Dre now understands that beneath Mr. Han's calm and disciplined personality exists a man carrying years of grief and loneliness. This understanding changes their relationship completely because Dre no longer sees Mr. Han only as a teacher. He sees him as someone who survived devastating emotional pain and still chose compassion instead of bitterness. Mr. Han's wisdom now carries greater emotional meaning for Dre. Every lesson about patience, balance, and emotional control feels connected not only to martial arts but also to life itself. Dre begins realizing that Kung Fu is not simply preparing him for a tournament, it is teaching him how to handle pain, fear, and pressure without losing himself emotionally. Meanwhile, Dre's training becomes increasingly intense and focused. His reflexes improve, his movements become sharper, and his balance grows more controlled. Mr. Han continues emphasizing defensive techniques and awareness rather than reckless attacks. Dre learns how to stay calm under pressure, conserve energy, and react intelligently instead of emotionally during combat. The atmosphere throughout these training scenes remains calm and visually beautiful. Quiet temples, peaceful courtyards, mountain landscapes, and reflective moments throughout Beijing create a sense of emotional harmony that contrasts strongly with the hostility surrounding Cheng's world. These peaceful environments symbolize the inner balance Dre is slowly developing within himself. At the same time, Dre's relationship with Mei Ying continues providing emotional warmth and support. Their connection becomes increasingly important because it reminds Dre that his life in China is not defined only by fear and conflict. Around Mei Ying, he experiences moments of happiness and normalcy that help him emotionally relax amid the growing pressure of the tournament. However, the danger posed by Cheng and Master Li continues intensifying. Master Li's philosophy grows increasingly disturbing as the tournament approaches. He teaches his students that victory matters above everything else, even if achieving it requires cruelty or unnecessary violence. Cheng, heavily influenced by this mindset, becomes even more determined to defeat Dre and maintain dominance over him. The emotional contrast between Mr. Han's peaceful teachings and Master Lee's aggressive ideology becomes sharper than ever. Dre slowly begins understanding that the tournament represents much more than a personal fight against Cheng. It has become a clash between two completely different philosophies about strength and martial arts. One side believes power comes through fear, intimidation, and aggression. The other believes true strength comes through discipline, balance, and emotional control. At the same time, moments of fear and self doubt still continue affecting Dre internally. Even with all his progress, memories of humiliation and bullying remain painful. Part of him still fears failing publicly or disappointing Mr. Han after everything they worked for together. These emotional struggles make Dre's journey feel realistic and deeply human because his courage develops gradually rather than appearing suddenly. Mr. Han continues supporting him with patience and understanding, reminding Dre that victory is not measured only by winning matches. Real success comes from standing up with courage, self respect, and emotional control regardless of the outcome. These lessons slowly reshape Dre's understanding of what it truly means to be strong. Meanwhile, the tournament finally draws near, bringing excitement, nervousness, and emotional anticipation. Dre knows the moment he feared for months is now unavoidable. Soon he will stand face to face with Cheng again, not as the frightened outsider who first arrived in Beijing, but as someone transformed through discipline, resilience, and personal growth. And as the final days before the tournament begin counting down, one realization grows stronger inside Dre's mind. The greatest victory may not come from defeating an opponent, but from becoming stronger than the fear that once controlled you. As the day of the Kung Fu tournament finally arrives, the emotional tension surrounding Dre Parker reaches its highest point yet. Everything he experienced since arriving in Beijing, the loneliness, humiliation, bullying, fear, and intense training has led to this moment. The tournament is no longer simply a competition. For Dre, it represents a personal test of courage, discipline, and emotional growth. Standing inside the crowded arena, surrounded by skilled fighters and loud spectators, he feels both nervous and determined at the same time. The atmosphere of the tournament feels intense and energetic from the very beginning. Students from different martial arts schools gather together, displaying impressive skills, confidence, and discipline. The environment is filled with excitement, pressure, and anticipation as fighters prepare themselves mentally and physically for combat. For Dre, however, the pressure feels even heavier because he knows Cheng and the aggressive students from Master Lee's school are waiting for him. Despite his fear, Dre no longer reacts with panic like he once would have earlier in the story. Mr. Han's training has changed the way he approaches challenges. Instead of focusing only on the possibility of losing or getting hurt, Dre tries to remain calm and balanced, remembering the lessons about patience, control, and focus that shaped his entire journey. Meanwhile, Mr. Han remains quietly supportive throughout the tournament. He never pressures Dre with expectations or demands victory at all costs. Instead, he reminds Dre that true strength comes from discipline, courage, and emotional control rather than aggression or anger. This calm guidance helps Dre manage his anxiety as the competition begins. The emotional bond between Dre and Mr. Han becomes especially powerful during these scenes because the tournament feels important for both of them. Dre is fighting to overcome fear and reclaim his confidence, while Mr. Han is emotionally invested in helping Dre succeed not only as a fighter but as a person. Their relationship has evolved into something much deeper than martial arts training. It now feels like a genuine family connection built on trust, healing, and mutual understanding. As the matches begin, Dre quickly realizes how difficult the competition truly is. Many of the fighters are highly skilled, disciplined, and physically stronger than him. However, Dre's training under Mr. Han slowly begins showing results during combat. Instead of relying on aggression or reckless attacks, he uses balance, defensive movement, patience, and timing to outmaneuver opponents. Each victory gives Dre more confidence, but the emotional pressure continues building because he knows Cheng remains waiting deeper in the tournament bracket. Every match feels like another step closer toward confronting the fear that haunted him since his first days in Beijing. The action sequences during the tournament become fast paced and emotionally engaging. Dre's fighting style reflects everything Mr. Han taught him: controlled movements, intelligent defense, and emotional discipline under pressure. Unlike Cheng and Master Lee's students, who often fight with aggression and intimidation, Dre learns how to remain focused even during painful or stressful moments. At the same time, Cheng continues dominating his own matches with brutal efficiency. Under Master Lee's harsh philosophy, Cheng fights aggressively and shows little compassion toward opponents. His intimidating presence continues creating tension throughout the tournament because everyone recognizes him as one of the strongest competitors. Meanwhile, Dre's friendship with Mei Ying also remains emotionally important during the competition. Her support gives him encouragement and emotional comfort amid the intense pressure surrounding the tournament. Knowing that someone believes in him helps Dre remain emotionally grounded when fear and doubt begin resurfacing. As the competition continues, Dre faces increasingly difficult opponents who test both his physical skill and emotional control. Some moments leave him exhausted and frustrated, while others reveal how far he has come since beginning his training with Mr. Han. The tournament gradually transforms into a reflection of Dre's entire personal journey, from insecurity and fear toward confidence and discipline. However, the emotional and physical pressure begins taking a serious toll on him. Injuries, fatigue, and growing anxiety make each match more difficult than the last. Dre realizes that talent alone will not be enough to survive the challenges ahead. He must rely on resilience, focus, and inner strength if he hopes to continue. Meanwhile, Chen watches Dre advancing through the tournament with growing anger and determination. The rivalry between them becomes increasingly personal because Dre's success directly challenges the dominance and intimidation Cheng maintained for so long. And as the tournament moves closer toward the inevitable final confrontation between them, one powerful realization begins forming inside Dre. Winning may not depend on being the strongest fighter in the arena, but on refusing to give up when everything becomes painful. As the Kung Fu tournament continues, the emotional and physical pressure on Dre Parker becomes more intense than ever before. Every match pushes him closer toward exhaustion. Yet each victory also proves how much he has changed since the frightened boy who first arrived in Beijing. The arena now feels less like a place of fear and more like a test of everything Mr. Han taught him: discipline, balance, patience, and emotional control under pressure. The atmosphere inside the tournament grows increasingly tense as the number of competitors decreases. Spectators cheer loudly while students from different schools watch carefully, analyzing every movement and every result. The excitement surrounding the event continues building because the strongest fighters are now beginning to face one another, and everyone understands the competition is entering its most difficult stage. Dre's fighting style continues reflecting the philosophy Mr. Han spent months teaching him. Instead of attacking recklessly, he remains focused on timing, awareness, and controlled defense. His movements become sharper and more confident during each match, showing how discipline and patience can overcome physical disadvantage. Earlier in the story, Dre often reacted emotionally when pressured or frightened. Now, however, he slowly learns how to remain calm even while surrounded by fear and aggression. Meanwhile, Mr. Han continues supporting Dre quietly from the sidelines. He does not shout aggressive instructions or pressure Dre into hurting opponents. Instead, his calm presence reminds Dre to stay balanced emotionally and mentally, no matter how intense the competition becomes. Their bond feels stronger than ever during these moments because the tournament represents the emotional journey they experience together. At the same time, Cheng remains one of the most intimidating fighters in the tournament. Under Master Lee's ruthless teachings, Cheng fights with aggression and overwhelming force, dominating opponents through intimidation as much as physical skill. His confidence grows stronger with every victory, and the tension surrounding his inevitable confrontation with Dre continues increasing throughout the arena. The emotional contrast between Mr. Han and Master Lee becomes even more visible during the tournament. Mr. Han teaches respect, discipline, and emotional control, while Master Lee promotes aggression, dominance, and merciless behavior. This difference transforms the competition into something far more meaningful than simple martial arts matches. It becomes a clash between two completely different beliefs about strength and honor. As Dre continues advancing, the physical toll of the tournament becomes harder to ignore. Each fight leaves him more exhausted, and injuries begin slowing him down. Bruises, pain, and fatigue test his determination repeatedly, forcing him to rely not only on training but also on mental resilience. Despite this growing exhaustion, Dre refuses to quit because he understands how much emotional progress he would lose by surrendering to fear now. Meanwhile, Mei Ying continues supporting Dre emotionally throughout the tournament. Her encouragement helps calm him during moments of anxiety and self doubt, reminding him that people genuinely believe in him now. This emotional support becomes important because Dre still carries insecurity beneath his growing confidence. Part of him still remembers the helplessness and humiliation he experienced when Chang bullied him earlier in the story. The action during these matches becomes faster and more emotionally intense as Dre faces stronger opponents. Some moments push him dangerously close to defeat, yet he repeatedly recovers through focus, discipline, and determination rather than aggression. Every successful movement reflects the lessons Mr. Han carefully taught him throughout their journey together. However, the emotional tension reaches another level when Chang and the students from Master Lee's school begin viewing Dre not as an easy target but as a genuine threat. Cheng's frustration and anger grow stronger because Dre's success directly challenges the fear and dominance he maintained over others for so long. For the first time, Cheng begins realizing that Dre is no longer the weak outsider he once bullied without effort. At the same time, Master Lee's harsh mentality becomes increasingly dangerous. His obsession with victory begins overshadowing all sense of fairness or compassion. He pressures his students to fight aggressively and without mercy, reinforcing the toxic belief that weakness deserves punishment rather than understanding. As the tournament moves closer toward the final rounds, Dre realizes that the greatest challenge still lies ahead. He knows the confrontation with Cheng is becoming unavoidable, and the fear connected to that rivalry still exists deep inside him despite all his progress. Yet something important has changed. Earlier, Dre feared Cheng because he felt powerless. Now he fears the fight but no longer doubts his own worth. And as the crowd grows louder and the final matches approach, one powerful truth becomes clearer inside Dre's mind. Real strength is not about never feeling fear. It is about refusing to let fear decide who you become. As the tournament enters its most intense stage, the emotional pressure surrounding Dre Parker becomes almost overwhelming. The arena is now filled with excitement, tension, and growing anticipation as only the strongest competitors remain. Every match carries greater importance than before, and the atmosphere feels heavier with each passing round. Dre understands that he is getting closer and closer to the confrontation he feared from the beginning, the final battle against Cheng. Despite the pressure surrounding him, Dre continues demonstrating remarkable growth throughout the tournament. The frightened and emotionally reactive boy who first arrived in Beijing is almost unrecognizable now. Through Mr. Han's training, he has developed discipline, patience, and emotional control that continue guiding him even during painful and stressful moments. Although fear still exists inside him, he no longer allows it to completely control his actions. Mr. Han's influence becomes especially important during this stage of the competition. While other instructors yell aggressively and pressure their students to dominate opponents, Mr. Han remains calm and focused. His quiet confidence helps Dre stay emotionally balanced amid the noise and chaos surrounding the tournament. Every lesson Mr. Han taught about patience, awareness, balance, and respect now becomes essential for Dre's survival inside the arena. Meanwhile, Cheng continues advancing through the tournament with brutal intensity. His aggressive fighting style and intimidating presence make him one of the most feared competitors in the entire competition. Under Master Lee's harsh teachings, Cheng fights without hesitation or compassion, viewing opponents as obstacles to destroy rather than individuals deserving respect. His victories increase the tension surrounding the inevitable showdown between him and Dre. The emotional contrast between the two fighters becomes more powerful with every round. Shen represents anger, aggression, and domination, shaped by a philosophy built on fear and merciless behavior. Dre, however, represents discipline, resilience, and emotional growth. His training under Mr. Han taught him that martial arts are not about hurting others, They are about controlling oneself under pressure. At the same time, the physical toll of the tournament becomes increasingly severe for Dre. The repeated matches leave him exhausted and injured, forcing him to push beyond his physical limits. Every movement now requires greater effort, and moments of pain threaten to weaken both his focus and confidence. Yet, despite the growing exhaustion, Dre refuses to quit because he understands how much emotional progress he would lose by giving up now. Meanwhile, Mei Ying continues supporting Dre emotionally from the sidelines. Her encouragement helps remind him that he is no longer alone or powerless. Earlier in the story, Dre often felt isolated and disconnected from the world around him. Now, however, he realizes people genuinely believe in him and respect the person he has become. This emotional support gives him additional strength during the most difficult moments of the competition. The action sequences during this stage become faster, more intense, and emotionally charged. Dre faces increasingly skilled opponents who challenge both his physical ability and emotional discipline. Some matches push him dangerously close to defeat, forcing him to rely completely on the lessons Mr. Han taught him about patience, focus, and balance. Instead of reacting through panic or anger, Dre learns how to stay calm and think clearly, even under extreme pressure. However, the emotional tension rises dramatically when Master Lee's obsession with victory begins crossing dangerous boundaries. His ruthless philosophy becomes increasingly toxic as he pressures his students to show absolutely no mercy inside the tournament. Winning matters more to him than fairness, respect, or even the well being of his own students. This mindset creates an atmosphere of hostility and fear around Cheng's school that sharply contrasts with the calm discipline Mr. Han teaches Dre. As Dre moves closer toward the final confrontation with Chen, painful memories of bullying and humiliation continue resurfacing inside his mind. The fear connected to those experiences has not disappeared completely. Part of him still remembers feeling helpless, embarrassed, and weak during his first days in Beijing. Yet now, instead of running from those emotions, Dre begins confronting them directly through courage and self belief. The emotional growth inside him becomes increasingly clear. He no longer wants revenge against Cheng. He simply wants to prove to himself that fear no longer controls who he is. Meanwhile, Cheng begins realizing that Dre has become far stronger than expected, not only physically but emotionally as well. The boy he once viewed as weak and easy to intimidate now stands confidently inside the same arena, refusing to back down despite pain, pressure, and exhaustion. And as the tournament approaches its final decisive moments, one powerful realization begins taking shape inside Dre. Sometimes the greatest victory is not defeating an opponent, but becoming the person you once believed you could never be. As the tournament reaches its final stages, the entire atmosphere inside the arena becomes more intense, focused, and emotionally charged. Only the strongest fighters remain, and every match now feels like a step closer toward destiny. For Dre Parker, this is no longer just about proving himself against Cheng. It has become a defining moment that represents everything he has learned, endured, and overcome since arriving in Beijing. Dre's confidence continues growing, but it is no longer the same confidence he once had back in Detroit. That earlier confidence was based on energy and attitude, but now his strength comes from discipline, patience, and emotional control. Through Mr. Han's guidance, Dre has learned how to stay calm under pressure, how to read his opponents, and how to rely on focus instead of fear. This transformation becomes especially clear as he continues progressing through increasingly difficult matches. The tournament environment grows even more intense as spectators and fighters begin realizing that Dre is no longer an underdog. His performance surprises many of the competitors who initially underestimated him. Each victory here is not based on aggression or brute force, but on timing, awareness, and intelligent defense. This change reflects how deeply Mr. Han's teachings have shaped him over time. Meanwhile, Cheng continues dominating his side of the tournament with aggressive precision. His fighting style remains harsh and unforgiving, shaped entirely by Master Li's philosophy of dominance and merciless victory. Cheng's reputation as a powerful fighter grows stronger with every match, and the anticipation surrounding a potential final confrontation between him and Dre becomes the central focus of the tournament. The emotional contrast between Dre and Cheng becomes even more meaningful at this stage. Chen fights with anger and control over others, believing strength means destroying opponents. Dre, however, fights with restraint and self control, understanding that true strength comes from overcoming fear rather than inflicting harm. This philosophical difference turns the rivalry into something far deeper than a simple competition. It becomes a clash of values and identity. At the same time, Dre's physical condition becomes increasingly strained. The repeated matches, injuries, and exhaustion begin testing his limits. There are moments where his body feels like it cannot continue, yet he refuses to stop. Each time he feels pain or doubt, he remembers Mr. Han's lessons and pushes forward with renewed determination. His journey becomes not just physical endurance but emotional resilience. Mr. Han continues watching Dre closely from the sidelines, offering silent support rather than pressure or expectation. His calm presence helps Dre stay grounded even during the most stressful moments of competition. The trust between them has become so strong that no words are needed. Dre simply understands what Mr. Han believes in him, and that belief becomes part of his strength. Mei Ying also continues playing an important emotional role in Dre's journey. Her presence in the audience reminds him that he is no longer alone in this unfamiliar world. She represents comfort, acceptance, and emotional stability in a place that once felt completely foreign and isolating. This emotional support gives Dre additional courage during moments when doubt tries to return. As the tournament narrows down to its final matches, tension begins building toward the inevitable confrontation between Dre and Chang. Both fighters are now aware that their paths will eventually collide. Chang, driven by pride and aggressive training, sees Dre as a challenge that must be eliminated. Dre, on the other hand, sees Chang not as an enemy to destroy but as the final test of everything he has learned. The emotional weight of this approaching battle becomes heavier with every passing moment. Dre reflects on his journey, the fear he felt when he first arrived in Beijing, the humiliation from bullying, the frustration during training, and the gradual growth he experienced under Mr. Han's guidance. Each memory strengthens his resolve rather than weakening it. At the same time, Master Li's influence over Cheng continues pushing him toward an even more aggressive mindset. He teaches that mercy is weakness and that victory must be achieved at any cost. This philosophy creates a dangerous environment where emotional control is replaced by anger and dominance, making Cheng both powerful and emotionally unstable. As the final rounds approach, Dre realizes something important about himself. He is no longer the same boy who arrived in Beijing afraid of everything. And as he steps closer to facing Cheng, one final truth begins to settle inside him. True strength is not about winning every fight. It is about never letting fear decide the outcome before the fight even begins. As the tournament moves into its final and most intense phase, the atmosphere inside the arena becomes almost overwhelming. Every sound, every movement, and every match now carries extreme importance because only a few fighters remain. Dre Parker can feel the pressure building around him, but instead of breaking him, it begins sharpening his focus. The journey that started with fear and isolation is now approaching its most important test, his final confrontation with Cheng. Dre's growth is now undeniable to everyone watching. The once uncertain and frightened boy has become a disciplined and focused competitor who moves with calm precision. His fighting style no longer reflects panic or desperation. Instead, it shows balance, awareness, and control. He reads opponents carefully, responds at the right moment, and avoids unnecessary aggression. This transformation reflects everything Mr. Han taught him about Kung Fu being a discipline of mind and body, not just physical strength. Each victory Dre earns in the tournament becomes more meaningful because it is not just about advancing, it is about proving to himself that he has truly changed. The emotional weight behind every match is heavy, as Dre constantly battles memories of bullying, humiliation, and fear. However, instead of letting those memories weaken him, he now uses them as motivation to stay focused and calm under pressure. Meanwhile, Cheng continues to dominate his side of the tournament with aggressive confidence. His fighting remains powerful and intimidating, shaped entirely by Master Lee's philosophy that strength comes from dominance and fearlessness in destroying opponents. Cheng's attitude grows even more serious as he realizes Dre is still progressing through the tournament, refusing to be eliminated. The contrast between Dre and Chen becomes more powerful as the final confrontation approaches. Chen represents aggression, pride, and uncontrolled intensity. Dre represents patience, discipline, and emotional control. Their conflict is no longer just physical, it has become a reflection of two completely different ways of understanding strength. At the same time, Dre continues facing physical exhaustion and pain from repeated matches. His body is pushed to its limits, but his mental strength keeps him moving forward. Every step in the tournament tests not only his physical ability but also his emotional endurance. There are moments when fatigue threatens to slow him down, but Mr. Han's teachings echo in his mind, reminding him to stay balanced and focused. Mr. Han remains a steady presence throughout the tournament. He does not interfere or pressure Dre, but his calm confidence provides silent encouragement. Dre knows that everything he has learned from Mr. Han has prepared him for this moment. The trust between them has become unbreakable, built through shared struggle, patience, and emotional healing. Mei Ying continues supporting Dre from the sidelines, and her presence provides emotional comfort during the intense pressure of competition. Seeing someone believe in him gives Dre strength during moments of doubt. She represents a reminder that his journey in Beijing is not defined only by conflict and fear, but also by connection and acceptance. As the tournament narrows down further, anticipation builds for the inevitable clash between Dre and Cheng. Both fighters understand that their final confrontation is approaching. Cheng's confidence remains strong, but there is now a sense of tension beneath his aggression because Dre is no longer the weak target he once bullied. Dre has become a legitimate opponent capable of challenging him on equal ground. Master Lee continues reinforcing his harsh philosophy, encouraging Cheng to fight without hesitation or mercy. This mindset increases the emotional intensity of Cheng's approach, making his fighting style more aggressive but also less controlled. In contrast, Dre's calm and disciplined mindset allows him to remain focused even in high pressure situations. As Dre prepares mentally for what may be the final match, he reflects on how far he has come. The boy who once struggled to understand a new language, a new culture, and a new life is now standing on the edge of proving himself in front of everyone. The fear that once controlled him no longer defines his actions. And as the final moment before the ultimate confrontation draws near, Dre realizes something deeply important. He is not fighting to prove he is better than Cheng. He is fighting to prove he is no longer afraid of who he used to be. As the tournament reaches its final decisive moments, the atmosphere inside the arena becomes extremely intense and emotionally charged. The crowd's energy rises with every match, but beneath the excitement lies a heavy sense of anticipation because everyone now understands that the competition is nearing its ultimate conclusion. Dre Parker stands among the final competitors, and the pressure he feels is no longer just about winning, it is about facing the last and most important challenge of his entire journey. Dre's transformation is now fully visible to everyone around him. The once uncertain, fearful boy who struggled to adapt to life in Beijing has become a calm, focused, and disciplined fighter. His movements inside the arena reflect everything he has learned from Mr. Han: balance, patience, timing, and emotional control. Instead of reacting with fear or aggression, Dre now responds with awareness and precision, using his training to stay composed even under extreme pressure. Each match leading to this point has shaped Dre into someone stronger, not just physically but emotionally as well. He no longer fights to escape fear, he fights while fully understanding it. Every opponent he has faced, every moment of pain, and every instance of doubt has contributed to his growth. The tournament has become more than a competition. It has become a reflection of his entire personal journey from insecurity to self belief. Meanwhile, Cheng continues advancing with aggressive determination on his side of the bracket. His fighting style remains powerful, direct, and intimidating, shaped entirely by Master Lee's philosophy that strength comes through dominance and fearlessness in defeating others. Cheng's confidence remains strong, but the tension surrounding his eventual confrontation with Dre continues to build as both fighters draw closer to the final stage. The contrast between Dre and Cheng becomes more powerful than ever at this point in the story. Cheng represents aggression, pride, and control through force. Dre represents discipline, emotional balance, and strength through patience. Their rivalry is no longer just personal, it has become symbolic of two completely different philosophies of martial arts and life itself. Dre's physical condition is now heavily strained from continuous matches. His body carries fatigue, pain, and exhaustion, but his mental focus allows him to continue pushing forward. Instead of breaking under pressure, he uses everything he has learned to stay grounded. Mr. Han's teachings about breathing, balance, and awareness help Dre maintain control even when his body feels like it is reaching its limit. Mr. Han remains quietly present throughout the tournament, offering emotional support without interference. His calm and steady confidence reassures Dre more than words ever could. The trust between them has reached its strongest point, built through shared struggle, discipline, and emotional healing. Dre understands that everything he needed to succeed has already been given to him through Mr. Han's guidance. Mei Ying continues to be an emotional source of encouragement for Dre during the tournament. Her support reminds him that his journey has meaning beyond competition. She represents acceptance, kindness, and emotional stability in a world that once felt unfamiliar and isolating. Knowing she is there watching him gives Dre additional strength during moments of pressure and doubt. As the tournament narrows down to its final matchups, the long awaited confrontation between Dre and Cheng finally becomes inevitable. Both fighters are now aware that their paths will collide. Cheng approaches the match with aggression and pride, determined to prove his dominance. Dre, however, approaches it with calm focus and emotional clarity, no longer driven by fear or humiliation, but by self growth and inner strength. Master Lee continues pushing Cheng toward an even more ruthless mindset, reinforcing the belief that mercy is weakness and only victory matters. This philosophy further intensifies the emotional conflict between the two schools, highlighting the contrast between destructive aggression and disciplined control. Dre, on the other hand, reflects on everything he has endured since arriving in Beijing: the loneliness, bullying, fear, training, and emotional transformation. Each experience has shaped him into someone stronger and more aware of his own identity. He no longer sees himself as the frightened outsider he once was. And as the final match approaches, Dre realizes a powerful truth. This fight is no longer about proving himself to others. It is about proving to himself that fear no longer defines who he is. As the tournament finally enters its most critical stage, the entire arena feels charged with tension and anticipation. The crowd's noise rises and falls with each passing match, but everything now revolves around the final outcome that is slowly approaching. Dre Parker stands at the edge of his biggest moment yet, fully aware that everything he has learned, endured, and overcome is about to be tested in its most complete form. Dre's presence in the tournament has now changed the way others see him. He is no longer treated as the weak newcomer or the easy target he once was. Instead, he has earned respect through discipline, patience, and consistency. His fighting style reflects a deep understanding of Kung Fu principles: controlled movement, timing, balance, and emotional awareness. Every action he takes inside the arena now shows clarity instead of fear. What makes Dre's journey even more meaningful is how internal his transformation has become. He no longer depends on anger or desperation to push him forward. Instead, he relies on focus and calm decision making, even in moments of exhaustion or pressure. The tournament has forced him to confront not just external opponents, but also the fear and insecurity he once carried within himself. Cheng, meanwhile, continues advancing with overwhelming aggression on his side of the competition. His fighting remains intense, direct, and forceful, shaped by Master Lee's philosophy that strength comes from domination and emotional hardness. Each victory Cheng earns reinforces his belief that mercy and hesitation are weaknesses that must be eliminated. However, beneath Cheng's confidence, there is growing tension. Dre's progress through the tournament has clearly challenged his expectations. The boy he once bullied without hesitation is now standing as a legitimate competitor, someone who cannot be dismissed or underestimated anymore. This realization creates an emotional shift, making Cheng's upcoming confrontation with Dre even more significant. The philosophical divide between the two fighters becomes even clearer at this stage. Cheng represents aggression, control through fear, and victory at any cost. Dre represents discipline, emotional control, and strength through patience and awareness. Their clash is no longer just physical, it represents two completely opposite ideas of what it means to be strong. Dre's physical condition continues to deteriorate due to the intense demands of the tournament. Each match leaves him more exhausted, yet his mental focus keeps him steady. Pain and fatigue become part of the challenge, but not something that can break his determination. Mr. Han's teachings about breathing, awareness, and balance continue guiding him through these difficult moments. Mr. Han remains a constant, silent source of support. He does not interfere or push Dre beyond his limits, but his calm presence acts as emotional grounding. Dre draws strength from knowing that everything he has learned was prepared for this exact moment. Their relationship now feels built on deep trust and mutual understanding rather than instruction alone. Mei Ying continues watching from the sidelines, offering emotional encouragement without needing to say much. Her presence gives Dre a sense of connection to something beyond the tournament itself. She represents stability and emotional warmth in a world that has often felt unpredictable and isolating. This connection helps Dre stay mentally steady even when pressure builds. As the final rounds approach, the inevitability of Dre facing Cheng becomes stronger with each passing moment. Both fighters understand that their paths will cross soon. Cheng prepares with aggression and pride, determined to maintain dominance. Dre prepares with calm focus, no longer fighting out of fear but out of clarity and self awareness. Master Lee continues reinforcing his harsh belief that only absolute victory matters, further intensifying the emotional contrast between his philosophy and Mr. Han's teachings. This difference highlights the deeper meaning behind the tournament. It is not just about winning matches, but about what kind of person each fighter becomes through their path. Dre reflects on his entire journey once again. The loneliness of arriving in Beijing, the humiliation of being bullied, the frustration of learning something completely new, and the gradual transformation through discipline all come together in this moment. Every experience has shaped him into someone stronger, not because he became more aggressive, but because he learned how to stay calm under pressure. And as the final confrontation draws even closer, one truth settles deeply within Dre. He is no longer fighting to escape fear. He is fighting because he has finally learned how to stand beyond it. As the tournament reaches its absolute final stretch, everything inside the arena becomes quieter in a strange way, almost as if the entire world is narrowing down to one unavoidable moment. The crowd, the competitors, the pressure, and the expectations all seem to orbit around the same outcome: the final confrontation between Dre Parker and Cheng. At this point, nothing in Dre's journey feels random anymore. Every lesson, every failure, every moment of fear and growth has led him directly to this stage. Dre now carries himself with a calmness that was completely absent when he first arrived in Beijing. His movements are controlled, his breathing steady, and his focus sharper than ever before. Even though exhaustion still weighs on his body, his mind no longer collapses under pressure the way it once did. Instead, he remains grounded, using everything Mr. Han taught him to stay balanced even in the most intense moments. What makes Dre's transformation powerful is not just his skill, but his mindset. He no longer enters fights with the need to prove something out of anger or insecurity. Instead, he understands that every match is an opportunity to apply discipline under pressure. The fear he once felt is still present in the background, but it no longer controls his decisions. It has become something he can recognize without being consumed by it. Cheng, on the other hand, continues advancing with the same aggressive intensity that has defined him throughout the tournament. His fighting remains powerful, fast, and unforgiving, shaped by Master Lee's belief that strength comes from dominance and emotional hardness. Every victory Cheng achieves reinforces his identity as someone who refuses to show weakness or hesitation. However, as both fighters approach their inevitable clash, a subtle shift begins to appear in Cheng's confidence. Dre is no longer the same opponent he once bullied without effort. The transformation Dre has undergone makes him unpredictable, calm, and resistant to intimidation. This change introduces a new kind of pressure for Cheng, one he is not fully prepared for. The contrast between them now stands at its highest point. Cheng fights with aggression, pride, and control through force. Dre fights with patience, awareness, and control through discipline. Their upcoming match is no longer just about winning a tournament. It is about which philosophy of strength will survive under pressure. Physically, Dre is pushed to his limits. The repeated matches have left him exhausted, bruised, and strained. Yet he continues moving forward without hesitation. Pain is no longer something that stops him. It is something he has learned to manage. Every breath he takes during the tournament reflects Mr. Han's teachings about balance and control. Mr. Han remains steady in the background, offering silent support rather than interference. His presence gives Dre emotional stability, reminding him that he does not need to fight with anger or fear. Their connection now feels deeper than training. It feels like understanding built through shared struggle and emotional healing. Mei Ying's presence continues to provide Dre with emotional grounding. Even from a distance, knowing she believes in him helps him stay calm under pressure. She represents the part of his life in Beijing that brought warmth and connection instead of fear and isolation. That emotional support becomes part of his strength in moments when doubt tries to return. As the final match approaches, Dre reflects once again on how far he has come. The boy who once struggled just to survive in a foreign country is now standing at the edge of proving everything he has learned. The journey that began with confusion and fear has transformed into one of discipline, growth, and self discovery. At the same time, Master Lee continues reinforcing his belief that only victory matters, no matter the cost. This philosophy deepens the emotional divide between his world and Mr. Han's. One side teaches control through aggression, while the other teaches control through balance and respect. This clash of ideologies now fully defines the meaning of the tournament. And as Dre prepares for the final confrontation that is about to begin, one truth becomes completely clear in his mind. He is no longer the boy who came here afraid of everything. He is the fighter who learned how to stand without fear, standing for him. As the final moment of the tournament arrives, the entire arena feels like it has been reduced to a single purpose: the confrontation between Dre Parker and Cheng. Everything else fades into the background as the crowd falls into intense anticipation. This is not just the last match of a competition, it is the final test of everything Dre has endured since arriving in Beijing. Every lesson from Mr. Han, every moment of fear, every injury, every failure, and every step of growth has led him directly to this point. Dre stands in the arena with a level of calm he never thought possible when his journey first began. His breathing is steady, his focus is sharp, and his body, though exhausted, responds with control instead of panic. The fear he once carried so heavily still exists, but it no longer dominates him. Instead, he acknowledges it, understands it, and continues forward anyway. This emotional control becomes his greatest strength as the final match begins. Across from him stands Cheng, confident and aggressive as always, shaped completely by Master Lee's philosophy of dominance and merciless victory. Cheng's fighting style remains powerful and explosive, but now there is a subtle tension in his confidence. Dre is no longer the weak outsider he once bullied. Instead, Dre stands as an equal competitor who has earned his place through discipline, patience, and resilience. The match begins with intensity from both sides. Cheng attacks with force and speed, trying to overwhelm Dre early, relying on aggression and pressure. Dre, however, responds differently than before. He does not panic or retreat. Instead, he uses timing, awareness, and controlled movement to defend and redirect attacks. Every exchange reflects the difference between their training philosophies, one built on aggression, the other on discipline. As the fight continues, Dre slowly begins adapting to Cheng's rhythm. Each moment of pressure becomes an opportunity for focus rather than fear. The training under Mr. Han begins to fully manifest in his movements. Balance, patience, and precision guide his actions. Even when struck or pushed back, Dre remains composed, refusing to let emotion take over. Mr. Han watches from the sidelines with quiet confidence. He does not need to shout instructions or correct Dre's movements. Everything has already been taught through experience and discipline. His presence alone serves as emotional support, reminding Dre that strength is not measured by aggression but by control and clarity under pressure. Mei Ying also watches from the crowd, emotionally invested in Dre's journey. Her support represents everything Dre has gained beyond martial arts: connection, acceptance, and belonging in a place that once felt completely foreign. That emotional grounding gives Dre additional strength during the most difficult moments of the match. Cheng continues pressing forward aggressively, trying to break Dre's defense through force and intimidation, but Dre no longer reacts the way he used to. The fear that once controlled him has been replaced by awareness. He understands Cheng's patterns, his aggression, and his reliance on dominance. Instead of being overwhelmed, Dre begins responding with calculated precision. The fight becomes more than physical, it becomes symbolic. Cheng represents uncontrolled aggression and pride, while Dre represents discipline, emotional balance, and self control. Every movement between them reflects this deeper conflict of philosophy. As the match reaches its peak intensity, Dre's exhaustion becomes undeniable. His body is strained, his energy is low, and every movement requires effort. But mentally, he remains stronger than ever. He does not fight to escape fear anymore. He fights with understanding, patience, and clarity. In the final exchange, Dre uses everything he has learned to overcome Cheng's aggressive pressure. Not through anger or revenge, but through timing, balance, and control. The moment reflects his complete transformation from a frightened newcomer into a disciplined martial artist who understands the true meaning of Kung Fu. When the match finally concludes, silence briefly fills the arena before the result is announced. In that moment, Dre is not thinking about victory or defeat. He is thinking about everything he has become through this journey. Mr. Han's teachings, the struggles of adaptation, the loneliness of a new country, the fear of bullying, the pain of training, and the growth of emotional strength. All of it comes together in a single realization. Dre Parker did not just learn Kung Fu, he learned how to face life without running from it. And as the final moment settles, one truth remains clear. Real strength is not about winning every fight, it is about becoming someone who is no longer controlled by fear at all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing movie breakdowns. See you in the next video.